Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today, I'm covering You Don't Know Sponge and Tunnel of Glove. I get the feeling that y'all are probably gonna expect a lot of yapping from me today. I feel like these are two episodes that contain elements that I am known to go on tangents or even rants about. And so if you find yourself anticipating, well, I hope I won't disappoint. I'm not sure if I have the full tilt rants in me, but let's just see what happens, shall we? But before I do that, why don't I take a second to say thank you to everyone watching today. I've recently hit 3,000 subscribers, which is fucking awesome, and I just really need y'all to know that I appreciate the continued support. More will be said about the new subscriber count in my next video, I'll just say that much. And now, let's just get right into it. Okay, come on now. Season 7, what is this? I'm almost done with you, and you just had to throw in one last irritating ass episode. Just why? Well, I suppose I just spoiled my opinions now, haven't I? But I mean, is that really shocking that I don't like this episode? And yes, I know I'm saying all of this when Big Sister Sam is coming down the pipe, but let's just table the implications of me saying that for now and focus on this episode. You Don't Know Sponge, just like so many episodes in this era, You Don't Know Sponge was an episode that I hadn't seen in quite some time before I'd reviewed it for the forum. And when I rewatched it for that review, I knew exactly why I hadn't seen it in so long. It wasn't good. And let's talk about why. So, You Don't Know Sponge is one of those episodes where one of my biggest sources for me disliking it is from the fact that it's fucking disappointing. I hate when episodes are disappointments. It just feels like a double whammy of dog shit. Okay, that's a harsh word, but I also couldn't think of a word to put there that wasn't disappointment, so dog shit it is. Anyway, just like I said in my review of The Secret Box, I love the idea of a plot centered on SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship. Hell, I liked the Battle of Bikini Bottom for this exact reason. I just think that these plots have the potential to be really wholesome and sweet, and I love that. And so for this episode to take this wonderful idea and throw it in the garbage after shredding it to pieces with this sorry excuse for a friendship-centered plot, well, it's just disappointing. And it's not even that Patrick is a jerk here. Well, okay, it is actually, and I'll get to that later. So I guess it's more accurate for me to say that it's not even just that Patrick is a jackass here. No. It's also that he's made out to be so much of an oblivious prick that he knows not a single thing about his best fucking friend, and that's just ridiculous nonsense. It's just annoying for multiple reasons, one of them being why do we have to have this completely unnecessary, convoluted, ludicrous conflict when we could have simple, wholesome fun? Like, is that too much to ask for? Apparently so. Another problem I have with You Don't Know Sponge, since it seems like I'm going to be organizing this review based on this way based on my problems, is that this shit drags too much and it's not funny. Like, let's take this beginning scene as an example. SpongeBob and Patrick making random noises is an interesting enough choice for our starting plot point. Like, it's not awful or anything like that. It serves as the origin point for a multitude of directions that this episode could go in, which is what a starting plot point should be doing, on top of drawing viewers in, which this plot point doesn't entirely do, but it doesn't push us away either, so overall it's fine. Sorry, I'm saying like so much for something that barely lasts any time. Let me move on. So, Patrick here is not just irritating because he's oblivious, but also because he acts babyish as well, and so that's not exactly great. The whole section where SpongeBob and Patrick kept trying to let the other go first was borderline annoying, but it thankfully improved once Squidward had the same reaction as the rest of us. And then we get to the best friends quiz, which is the driver of this episode, and this part of the episode is incredibly predictable and goes on for too long. Now, of course, I don't mind predictable, but considering I already don't like this plot, it being predictable certainly isn't doing it any favors. And thinking of this scene, I feel like it's suffering from the newly christened trying to be season 1 diseased, because while it has that slow feel of season 1, it fails in every regard to actually turn that into something good. Not helping the situation is one of those damn conversation tracks playing in the background. Honestly, when those types of tracks are coming up, a good 50% of the time it's gonna be a boring scene. It's sad that such good tracks, such as these, are associated with such unfortunate content. Now, before I move on, there are a couple of things in this beginning part of the episode that I did like. Like Squidward's deadpan snark lightens things up here and brings in some much needed humor, so that was good. And I liked how SpongeBob was slowly getting increasingly unsettled by Patrick's lack of knowledge about him. It was just a nice way to build the tension and give SpongeBob some character, I guess. I don't know how to word what I'm thinking of, but I think that you all may get the gist. I gotta say, You Don't Know Sponge harkens back to quite the old episode, Naughty Nautical Neighbors, which makes my season 1 comparison a little bit ago kinda funnier. But I say this episode reminds me of that one because Squidward acts as an instigator between SpongeBob and Patrick, and I appreciate that. Kind of, at least. See, my problem is that this episode completely lacks the charm of that one, where SpongeBob and Patrick get mad at each other because of Squidward's machinations, not because SpongeBob is rightfully angry that Patrick is a shit friend. And speaking of, it's simply not pleasant to watch SpongeBob be mistreated by Patrick, like when Patrick gets only his favorite flavor of ice cream and then asks SpongeBob to pay for it. Like, I already went off on this bullshit during my review of Stuck in the Ringer, so I'm not gonna go over all of that again, but lord, this episode makes me want to. At least Sandy appears in this episode, and that's a small win for me. She also gives pretty good advice here. Or, well, so the thing here is that this episode treats SpongeBob as if he's overreacting for his feelings here, and I just don't see that as the case at all. Yeah, SpongeBob would be overreacting if the conflict arose just from the best friends quiz, like if SpongeBob was putting the onus of their entire friendship on the quiz, but that's not what happens. The issue is that Patrick is a very selfish friend who doesn't know anything about SpongeBob even outside of the quiz context, somehow, and this episode doesn't properly address that. It acts as though the only issue that SpongeBob has with Patrick is him not knowing the answers to this quiz. It makes the episode internally inconsistent and even incoherent. It's like this episode wanted to be one of those episodes exhibiting SpongeBob's paranoia and insecurity, but Patrick was actually written as a pretty bad friend here, and so now the episode doesn't work. Like, I get what was being went for here, that sometimes friendships don't look like what a prototypical, popular idea of what a friendship looks like, and sometimes a friend may not be the best in one thing, but can more than make up for it in another thing, such as Patrick not knowing much about SpongeBob, but still able to get him a great gift. But the problem is that the ways that Patrick is lacking are ways that are literally fundamental to a friendship, such as knowing about and showing interest in the other person. And for my last problem of the episode, well, I'm kind of astounded that somehow You Don't Know Sponge manages to make the conflict between SpongeBob and Patrick boring, and it does this because it doesn't create an actual conflict between the two of them. Instead, SpongeBob is upset at Patrick and runs off, Patrick is clueless as to what's even going on, and so nothing of substance happens. We follow SpongeBob as he avoids Patrick, a Patrick who never even perceived a conflict in the first place, and it's just unsatisfying. And I get that in a way this is consistent with the characters of SpongeBob and Patrick. SpongeBob, when it comes to episodes like this, can be an overthinker, and Patrick does not really spend that much time in his head like that. But there are ways to write that without the conflict feeling pointless or, non existent. The more carefree character is supposed to still at least pick up on the inner conflict of the overthinker, even if that requires that character to outright say it or confront the carefree character on their potentially baseless transgressions. But the point is, there's still a moment of confrontation, of an internal conflict being brought to the external stage, and that just doesn't happen here. So, I really don't have anything else to say about You Don't Know Sponge. On a writing level, this episode is a mess, a kind of poor execution of a plot that could have been interesting and played with the parts of SpongeBob and Patrick's characters that are opposites. On a viewing level, this episode is boring, disappointing, and decently unpleasant. I engaged more of my debate on which tier to put this episode in than I did with the actual episode itself, if that tells you anything. And the result of that debate is that I'm putting this episode in my bad tier, where it comes in with a score of 3.8 out of 10. Unlike a tolerable tier episode, I can't even try to focus on the positives here. The bad stuff is just too paramount, and the writing is just so embarrassing that it warranted something more than mediocre tier for sure. Coming up next is Tunnel of Glove. It might come as a surprise when I say that I've always had a soft spot for this episode. See, it does my favorite thing, which is utilizing different character interactions by pairing up Pearl and SpongeBob, two characters that we don't frequently see interact. Not to mention that this episode involves Glove World, which is a setting that I've also always liked, so that's two wins coming together to make perhaps the ultimate win? Well, I wouldn't go that far, but this is definitely a big win for me. However, I do have one problem with this episode, and if you've been watching these reviews for long enough, you can probably guess what exactly that problem is. Pugs versus amatonormativity in SpongeBob SquarePants. Round, what is this now? 4? Whatever. The point is, I do this a lot. And this episode does the whole boy and girl know each other, so they must be dating thing, which is certainly not a trope I like. At all. And I hate when SpongeBob is involved in any sort of romantic plot. However, I also fully recognize that this episode is, in a way, making a commentary on the absurdity of that very idea. After all, anything outside of a platonic connection between Pearl and SpongeBob is not once entertained, which, thank God, considering SpongeBob is an adult and Pearl is a child. Yes, Pearl's friends keep teasing her about this completely made-up relationship between Pearl and SpongeBob, but neither Pearl nor SpongeBob show any interest at all. And I love, love, love that SpongeBob is completely unreceptive and or oblivious to any kind of romantic inclinations here. So really, it sounds like this episode is doing exactly what I want it to do, by not having SpongeBob seriously involved in a romantic plot, criticizing the absurdity of romantically pairing SpongeBob and Pearl just because they interact, and not being fucking weird with the age gap. So, what's the problem? Well, I guess problem is a misnomer here because it's not truly a problem I have with this episode so much as it is a preference that they just avoided this plot altogether. But for the plot that we did get, this was just about the best possible direction it could have gone in. The only thing better would have been a very straightforward, flat-out statement that Pearl's friends teasing them like this is ridiculous. It's a kid's show, so the subtlety is not necessary. But I suppose they couldn't whack this idea too hard since it is the entire basis of Spandy. Ooh. Got him. Moving right along out of that soapbox moment, let me focus on the good in this episode, because there's a lot of it. For one thing, SpongeBob is super cute in this episode, partly because of his aforementioned obliviousness, and partly because he's his happy and chatty self. I also just like some of his characterization in this episode, like him being such a stickler for the rules while on the ride is so very him, and this bounces off perfectly with Pearl's teenage rebellion. Speaking of Pearl, I just think that she's really great as well. It's neat seeing her act as the straight man here, and I love how SpongeBob's paranoia starts affecting her, like that part of the episode was really funny. And in general, I just really love the dynamic between SpongeBob and Pearl. I just think that they're a very underrated pairing that I'd love to see more of in future episodes. Speaking of characters, Patrick is such a good supporting one in Tunnel of Glove. He's a fool without it being annoying or excessive, which is exactly how it should be. Yeah, he's misguided and he makes the situation worse, but it's more than clear that his heart is well in the right place. He does his best to get SpongeBob out of the Tunnel of Glove, which I really like to see because yes, that's exactly the way I love to see Patrick be characterized. Someone who really loves and supports his best friend even if he's not being very helpful. He also isn't so much of an oblivious fool that he can't, function within a scene, so every part in the power plant is just hilarious. Although I don't really like the misunderstanding plotline for this episode, as I've already said, I do think it's funny how Pearl's friends literally get on the news and tease her about this supposed relationship. And I love how dramatized this ride breaking down is. Like, first it's the news talking about survival looking bleak, even though SpongeBob and Pearl could simply walk out of the ride, but okay. And then the episode turns into Five Nights at Freddy's for a second and has these animatronics literally go after SpongeBob and Pearl, and this part of the episode is super entertaining. I also love how during the news segment, Perch Perkins literally has to address Patrick specifically through the screen. It's so funny. As for the ending of this episode, well, I think Patrick thinking that the power grid thing is SpongeBob is hilarious, and Pearl getting her revenge is rather cathartic. Also, whenever I think of or say the word posterity, I think of this episode, so I suppose that may be its legacy. Well, that and also some of the Cosmic Shake. Tunnel of Glove is a hilarious episode, full stop. It also uses a dynamic that we don't see very often, which I absolutely love to see because I love when these underutilized dynamics are explored. Not to mention we hardly get to see Pearl in an episode anyway, especially one that doesn't feature Mr. Krabs, so there's so much that's unique about this episode, and I love that. I also love how this episode manages to add a little side plot in there as well, goes to show that the pacing was working too. So really, this was exactly the kind of episode I was looking for between the fresh dynamics, the good friend Patrick, and the excellent jokes. And even the way it handled this romance plot was a positive in the end. So since I've got no real problems here, there's no question that this episode will be going in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9.4 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. I may have labeled Tunnel of Glove under my episodes featuring amatonormativity as a plot point heading, but really, I think it doesn't quite fit with the other episodes in that purview. Now, yes, the reason why romance was never once entertained between SpongeBob and Pearl is because Pearl is 16 and SpongeBob is undoubtedly an adult, but for me, this episode also works in viewing it as an assertion of SpongeBob's aromanticism, at least for me. There's many ways you can read this episode, and this is the one that I choose to most strongly lean into, because I just like that the best. I don't know what you want me to say. And that doesn't mean it's the only way. It's just the way that serves me best. It's funny that Tunnel of Glove is paired with You Don't Know Sponge because it's the episode that focuses on SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship that has a shitty portrayal of it, while the episode that only touches on it as a side plot portrays it much, much better. Just kind of ironic that it turned out that way. I also think it's funny that I've been at it with these reviews for so long that my patterns are becoming increasingly obvious. At least I think they are. I mean, was it really shocking that I had a soapbox moment when talking about Tunnel of Glove? That I didn't like the way SpongeBob and Patrick's friendship was portrayed in You Don't Know Sponge? I don't think so. Heavy on the first one. But hey, my patterns being recognizable is just a mark of my style, my flair, my personality in my reviews. At least that's what I think. If you think differently, especially negatively, don't say anything. Just kidding. I welcome all thoughts in my comments, as long as you're not a dick, of course. And with that, I think I'll go ahead and close things out here, so I will see you all in the next review.